All right, so starting out with XLC, we did grab this liquidity from 65.30. Let's go back to the daily so you can see this exact level. So we did grab some buy side liquidity back from here slash this order block. We could potentially push up more to 67.11, but wouldn't really be interested unless we get a 2 up on the day, which is above 65.58. And our first price target would be 65.11. But like I said, starting off, we might get a retracement going into this week. So we have a put trigger below 64.67, overall targeting 63.58. And then as well into that daily fair value gap down here in this 62 range. And then if we even die even more than that, potentially we have another sell side liquidity at 61.78 on XLC. And then looking at XLY, this thing has just been on a non-stop run. So with XLY, we did currently reject that daily fair value gap on Friday. We also have a minor gap slightly above around at 168 level. So I have a call trigger above 167.81 overall to target this first gap fill that's at 168.73, and then from there to 173.39. And then we have a put trigger below 166.27 to target 163.34, and then from there to 161.20 down here. And then even as well, we also have a potential gap to the downfill at this 160 level. Going in with XLP, same thing. XLP has just been on a run. We were patient waiting for this Starbucks. You got Target, got all those names that ran within this sector. So with XLP, same thing. We rejected the daily fair value gap on Friday, but as well, we also have a gap fill higher up at 75.92. So that's something to keep on watch. I like calls for XLP above 75.05 to push through the daily fair value gap. As well, as you can notice here, we have very low liquidity on the volume nodes. So likely to get aggressive price action to that gap fill. And then not really too interested in the downside as far as more so, but retracement. But you do have a put trigger at 74.60. Overall first price target 73.96. And then going into XLE, this one I like a lot, more so on a 2-day. As you see here, we have the double inside. So kind of want to see whether we push up potentially to displace over this trend line or reject it and push back down. Maybe we need more sell side liquidity. So I like calls over 81.51 to target the equal highs at 82.52, and then from there push into this gap fill up to 84.06. And then if we reject, ultimately like puts below 80.63 to target 73.24, and then potentially push into this daily fair value gap down here. And then Rob, I'll let you take it over.
Okay, so
Was it from XLF?
yeah, from XLF. So with XLF, the huge thing that I think we need to talk about with a lot of the sectors is we are due for a pullback. XLF pretty much has been just trading really within a range. You can see that we did reject this bearish fair value gap here, so I'm kind of expecting it to move back down. You also can see from the VPVR on the right that our point of control is down below us at 31.98. So really this whole entire week, I'm going to be leaning bearish because the market does need a retracement. So the huge triggers that I'm going to be looking for on XLF on the weekly are going to be 32.89 to play that down. We can play it down here to PT1 here at 32.48, which is going to push through this order block. And the interesting thing to see is, are we going to push all the way through this order block and turn into a breaker bar at 31.49 and flip that back over on the weekly time frame? That's going to be something to take a look at. The next sector would be XLV, which is healthcare. We did see a little bit of a rotation. Personally, when I was looking at macro timeframes and all that kind of stuff on Friday, we saw a rotation into defensives. This is really interesting though, because our point of control here is at 133.26, and we actually rejected that back down. You can see we grabbed this level of liquidity up here basically, and we pushed ourselves back down. We also have that order block as well that we pushed up and through. So we're retracing back down. This is a nice shooter candle on the daily time frame. So if we round this back down to the weekly and take a look at it, we did trigger that 2 up. So are we going to stay inside and basically chop below this point of control, because it might be a supply area, so we could finish inside on the week. But 129.70 is going to be your put trigger above. Your call trigger is going to be right here at 133.25. So overall for XLV, I'm really just going to be patiently waiting this week. We have had 2 really bullish weeks in a row, sentiment wise. Like, let's just be patient here and play it level by level, liquidity by liquidity. XLI is very, very, very interesting to me. And you really have to zoom out to really understand why XLI is very interesting. We literally rejected pretty much off of our high volume node here. And then if you look as well, we literally rejected out of this volume imbalance as well. So XLI definitely has hit a turning point that we really have to take a look at on higher timeframes, as well as, is this going to retrace back down? We formed a nice shooter on the week. We do see on that daily time frame, we do have a lot of bullish order blocks below us, but honestly, this could just be one massive, as us straters like to call it, a pivot machine gun back to the downside to really get that mean reversion to balance back out. Overall on the week, if we want to play calls for XLI, we're going to be looking above 106.60, and then back to the downside, it's going to take a lot for us to get that trigger. It's going to be 102.12, which is definitely a very far to go. And one of the lessons that I learned is you don't have to necessarily wait for that stock to trigger. If you see it reject a liquidity level on a lower time frame, go for it, kind of thing, because you never know what that might do. I've missed out on several plays because I've literally waited for that trigger and I've missed out on it, and it's not fun at all. But if we take a look at XLB here for our materials, like I said, the sectors have been rotating defensive. Materials, XME, and all that kind of stuff is definitely moving into an interesting position for me personally. I'm not really looking to short materials like I was prior. I think honestly, XLE and XLB, XLME, and all that kind of stuff is going to start to run. So daily time frame, 81.79 is going to be that trigger up. We're full time frame continuity green. You can see from my volume indicator down here the level of volume that's coming in and how strong of green it is. So if we take a look here on the weekly time frame, as I think Zeus coined this term, we're pretty much trading within a price action range here. So you got your highs up here and you got your lows down here, where we made this nice order block that we bounced off of previously, and now we've moved back up and we're pretty much middle of the range, which happens to be right where our POC is as well. So 2 up on the week, continuation over 81.79. If we want to play puts to the downside, we're looking at 78.53 for XLB. Let's take a look here at XLRE as well, the real estate ETF that has basically been doing a lot of nowhere. I know ICT people here would say that this was a market maker sell model down here. It almost looks like this has induced to a degree for me, because this is a higher low on a good time frame. We did also create the shooter candle as well, so it might literally be just trading within a box. And what do we love about boxes? We can find our predictable bottoms and our predictable highs as well. So if we reject it up here and we continue to reject up here, we could play puts all the way down to 35.04. Let's take a look at that weekly trigger as well. So if we want to entertain ourselves and play calls here, we're going to be looking above 38.06. If we want to play puts as well, it's going to be 36.78. We do have the POC at 36.90, so that is going to be a supply area. I wouldn't be surprised if almost to a degree that's going to act as a magnet and pull us down. So XLRE might be good as a nice day trade here. You could possibly swing it as well for the whole entire week. It depends on how far we want to go back over. We do have that order block as well, and we have another one back here. So we do have a strong amount of support. We might just come back down to that POC and then bounce back up. Let's take a look at XLK technology, the lovely thing that has been running absolutely bananas and needs to sell off, just personal opinion. We got a nice bullish, we got a nice bearish engulfing candle here. Didn't come all the way through to create that outside day on Friday. We do have a nice candle here with a nice body, so I'm really looking at tech might just stay inside on the week. 166.81 is going to be your put trigger. 176.30 is going to be your call trigger for your continuation up. We do have a nice little volume imbalance down here that I would like to see us fill with these wicks and see if we can get the fill here in this purple region to move back down and maybe rebalance that range before continuing back up. Let's wrap up the last sector here with XLU utilities. Once again, this literally just screams it's been trading within a box or a price action range. And we're looking here, I would be interested to see if we can get the movement back up to that POC. We did create a nice shooter candle here, so we might see a reversal before going back up. On the weekly time frame, we got that 2 up. So we have 67.84 is going to be that 2-2 continuation up to the upside. Honestly, first target I would be looking at is 68.70 to get through this POC, which kind of is almost 50% of this bearish order block. If we do continue to push through this bearish order block, 69.39 would be that next point. And if we get all the way through it at 69.77, it's going to turn into a breaker bar, which I would expect us to also sweep the highs up here at 70.28. And then we have this bearish order block as well. It might continue to move through. Do see a nice amount of buying volume. We do see a descending amount of buyers week over week. So it is possible that we might just kind of hold within a range while the market digests all the news that it got for the last week. But I'll hit my 3 watch list tickers really quickly here. It's probably not going to go by any surprise here. I have Target, Starbucks, and Nike. Personally, I think exactly. I mean, the news is news kind of thing, but this is very interesting because when you look at Target on the weekly time frame and really zoom out, we kind of left a volume imbalance all the way back here that we just filled. And it wasn't much of a volume imbalance, but we filled it and now we bounced. We got a good amount of buyers that came in and stepped in as well. I did see a decent amount of flow coming as well. So we might continue to see this gap fill here on the week, on the daily time frame, my bad, because we saw that heavy selling pressure step in. We take a look at the weekly and let's play our triggers here. So to the upside, 138.08, and then we have as well to the downside, 125.08. The huge thing with Target for me is if you take a look at this daily, it left gap after gap after gap after gap. In order for me to see like any more downside, I feel like we at least have to rebalance 50% of this range before moving back down. That's just personally for me. So on the weekly time frame, I'm looking for that little teeny tiny volume imbalance fill. I'll highlight it for you guys. For those in the back, it's very, 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 very tiny, but I think we definitely need to fill this out. And it makes sense when you look at it because we did reject this as well. So hopefully we can get back above this and fill this through along with the other volume imbalances that we have left as well. We take a look at Starbucks. I know Zeus was talking about Starbucks being the next 300% play, and I 110% agree with him because this thing is absolutely nasty. Anyone who sees this knows that this is market maker buy model. Here's your sell, here's your buy. We saw earnings come through, and yeah, they missed on earnings, but this is lovely to see because what did we do? We swept levels of liquidity down here, and what did we do? We found buyers and we're bouncing. So when you sweep sell side, for those in the back, what do we do next? We sweep buy side. Now, I'm not saying we're going to hit $115 right away, but we have to go back through and hit each one of these targets. On the daily time frame, 102.51 is going to be that huge trigger. We got to fill this gap. We got to fill it. I'm personally going to draw 50% of this fib, and that's really where I'm going to be looking at. Maybe we might see a retracement. We'll come up, fill the gap, and then come back down before continuing higher. As well, this could be a massive inverse head and shoulders playing out if you really take a look at it. If we take a look here at the weekly time frame, that is a nice, beautiful candle to close on the weekly. And what do we have to the upside? Nothing but red. So we have a nice stop run that we're going to do. On the weekly, 102.51 above is going to be our trigger. Ultimately, we're going to be wanting to look at 105.70. We do have a good amount of stops up here as well as 107.15. I would be looking at this as well to see what further gaps we can fill. Starbucks, honestly, for me, buy time, set it, and possibly forget it, in my personal opinion. Let's just humor myself. Yeah, we did an outside doji on the 3 months. So we're gonna pretty much fill one of these sides first, and it's gonna be a question of who has control, bulls or bears. Let's take a look at Nike. Once again, another stock who just has gotten, part of my language, the other piss beaten out of it. We just have left so many gaps. We see buyers step in, we see sellers step in as well on Friday. So if we take a look here at the weekly, we finished off nicely on the week. Why do I like Nike? Well, we swept a level of liquidity. What more do you need to ask for? And we swept it here, and we wicked it here. What are we going to do? We're going to move back up, and we're going to find our buyers. Ultimately, 126.68 isn't really out of the cards for Nike. I would play calls above 114.76. On the daily time frame, you could play this for quick scalps and fill these multitude of gaps. I can spend a couple of minutes here highlighting each and every single one of them for you guys, but I really like it to the upside personally. But that's going to be overall my watch list for the week. So I'll throw it back over to Zeus for his watch list.
Alrighty, so first things first, I personally had Starbucks as well, but we're already into play. We have July contracts, so there's nothing necessarily to worry about. Kind of just sit back and just hold on to the trade. So first thing up for me is CVX based on XLE. We have that double inside day. I've been stocking CVX for the past 2-3 weeks now since we grabbed that 150 liquidity down here. Honestly think after we already got the trend line break, so without a doubt, we're going to this gap fill. No ifs, ands, or buts. We just have to be patient enough to actually snipe the entry because you can see here we kind of been consolidating for the past week now. So this triggers off the 195, I believe. Yep. So watching CVX above 158.93 overall to target the equal highs up here and then push into this buy side liquidity at 163.72. I also have a put trigger, but like I said, only interested really in the gap fill. It is the drawn liquidity, the way market structure and everything else is looking. So based on that, we do have a put trigger, but wouldn't really look to go much farther past PT1. So puts below 157.26. Your PT1 would be these equal lows right here at 156.12. And then I like CRM as well. So with CRM, we have this 3-1 on the 4-hour. Kind of holding this range, stuck kind of between this range right now. Ideally, think that we potentially can push up into this 116 range and potentially reject back down after we fill this imbalance here. So watching calls above 113 or 213.07 and puts below 211.07. Puts price target overall the 204.95 level, basically the equal lows down here. Ideally for the call trigger, not really looking for too much above 216. Now if we want to get the trend line breakdown, if buyers step in aggressively, From there, that's when I look in to potentially target that 220 level. What was the last one? Oh, the last ticker was Starbucks as well. Mm.
Starbucks just has such a
Oh,
good
it's
setup. Like
yep. Now I like Starbucks a lot. I think we confidently sniped the bottom, and this is gonna keep running.
it's gonna be one of those questions of how patient can you be to hold out for the whole entire game.
Yep. So as well, coin. Seen some bullish flow literally like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. Literally called it out the day. Coin gap down. We seen some bullish flow come in, and now as you can see where we are. So I have my entry model, which is pretty much liquidity grab, trendline break, and here we go. We got it on Thursday. So ideally this week I'm looking to get into some coin calls to potentially target this gap fill. As well, if you've seen Bitcoin, for all the shredders out there, we have just hit the bottom of the Browning formation. So there's only one direction where we can go next. So with that being said, I like calls above 5604 to target that 5742 level and then the gap fill at 5789. Now if we want to push even higher, we have this 5871 and then as well, looking at this range here, it's aggressive price action down. So if we do manage to breach this 59 level, we're going to have that aggressive pushback up all the way up to about 6450. Not really interested in the downside. Like I said, Bitcoin is at the bottom of the Briding formation. So we do have a put trigger, but be very, very aware. You probably wouldn't want to take it past this fair value gap. So puts below 54.50 or 54.95. Overall, your price target's about this 54 level. Now, if we do want to displace even further, maybe some news occurs, you have sell side liquidity at 50.38. So coin, CRX or CVX and CRM. That's what I'm watching for this week. Anybody have any tickers they want me to chart out?